Welcome, guys, to another episode of This Could Be Something Interesting. And today we are joined by the amazing Angelina Ray, who is well, you're a little bit of everything, aren't you, Angelina? Counsellor, psychic medium, spiritual healer. I don't even know where to start. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, well, all of those things, like how you kind of got into this space in the first place? That'd be an awesome place to start.
Yeah, how did I get into a space of integration, I think, is perhaps the question you're asking, because we can never tell who we're going to become. I don't think we have a picture on our minds of who we want to be, and then something takes over and then we get sculpted as such. So I think the way I am right now is embracing my maturity, shall we say, as I'm sort of in my mid-40s now, and realising that I'm now joining up all those pieces previous, but to really start to make sense as I help my clients make sense of their internal world and how they're navigating their external environment, and how we actually really have a power to sculpting that, bearing in mind the irony that I spoke about regarding the fact that we can never quite plan. So there's the cosmic joke in itself. So yeah, I'm really, really excited to be here, excited to delve into what I call energy work. And you mentioned interesting, and that's quite funny because one of my clients kept using the word interesting this morning. And
interesting.
That's
the whole name of the show. Yeah, wow.
Interesting.
The synchronicities are about. So when did you first realize, Angelina, that you had, I mean, I don't know if you want to call it like a gift or like, you use the word like intuition a lot, right? And I think intuition is one of those things where we live in such a kind of overstimulated world. And I think it can be difficult sometimes to recognize intuition from our brain just being noisy. How did you, or when did you realize, like, what was the moment for you when you felt there was something, or you'd started to maybe trust that? Like, what's your journey been like with intuition?
I mean, that's such a poignant question, which I love, because there's so many different states of realization, and I can come at it from a soulful and a physical aspect, as well as a spiritual aspect, as to the first defining moment that I realized that there was a aspect to self that was intuitive. But I was, to just touch briefly on the personal background, I was raised in a religious movement. So right from the beginning, I was taught foundations of faith, and I had to kind of find my understanding of that faith system. So I grew up very aware that there was something infinite, and there was a guiding source that led us. And there was things as consequences. It was my sort of, as a young child, I had many existential crisis moments of the meaning of life. But I mean, there's one fascinating story I had, which I often will refer to. I think I was about 7, and I was picking stars from my bedroom ceiling. Really crazy, because at that time, being homeschooled in a religious movement, we had these sort of micro spaces of rest time. So the children we just used to have this rest time where we would reflect and have time out. And I remember at that age being really quite bored. So it's interesting you say this podcast is interesting, because self-reflection can be very boring, as my clients would say. It's not exciting work to self-reflect. So I'm probably age 7, and I'm looking around, and I'm on these bunk beds, and I'm looking up, and there's these stars on the ceiling, and I'm thinking, wow, like, these are quite fun. They're quite interesting. And I picked these.
Were these
stars.
actual stars, or were these like physical? Like, what are we talking about?
No, I know. No, they were actually they were actually reflective ones. I don't know, you know, like glow in the dark.
Yeah, the little. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Like this. Yeah, this is going to the I mean, the young childhood memories of glow in the dark stickers that you can just like remove. And so they were there. God knows why they were there. I mean, my memories are very abstract as a child because I lived in so many homes, but lifting them up and putting them in my hands, these little stars. I don't know how I managed to pick them off the ceiling, but I did. And I felt then like an embodiment of being with the infinite. I was like, I'm literally reaching for the stars in a very physical level. But it was the interaction I had with the other children, you know, handing these stars to them as a gift. And I talk about gifts. And
that's cool.
And I said, look what I've got in my hands. And they looked at me and they said, oh, I don't think you're meant to be having these. Like, they're not for picking. They're on the ceiling. You don't do things like that. And again, breaking rules, going outside the boundaries of what people feel is good behaviour or bad. And I remember praying, and this is the thing I say about faith. I prayed that day because I believed in consequences and I believed that we had to behave, and I wasn't self-reflecting. I was being quite mischievous. And I said, I can't remember how the prayer went, but it was something of a thought form to say, just don't get me in trouble, because I don't want to have to answer to anyone about how disrespectful I'd been. Do you know? Because I'd made a mistake when I spoke to those children. I said, oh, the ceiling was flooded. And I just, something in me just said, make some cup. So I did. But the thing I made up was the fact that there was a flood. I said, there's condensation on the ceiling, and that's why the stars fell out and fell into my hand. So it was a really crazy out there excuse. But I'll tell you what, the next day, goddamn, there was a flood, and the ceiling was dripping with water and condensation. And I was like, so there was my embodiment of miracles, prayer, conversations with God, thinking outside the box, all this stuff. So yeah, I mean, was that intuition? The voice that said make it up, you could say, was that source energy? Was that a little voice inside, or was it both? And
it's like I guess there's so many of those things, isn't there? But sometimes I feel like we're just not even a lot of the time conscious enough to see them, but these kind of signs or synchronicities or whatever you want to call it, that there is, you know, something, some infinite power, some higher power, whatever it is. But yeah, I guess unless we're tuned in and ready to see it, you just don't. Like, anybody else could have just forgotten about that conversation and thought, oh no, it's a leak from the ceiling, you know?
Yeah. It's like the brain wants to connect to some kind of logic or sense. So It doesn't allow the space for the fact that maybe you're actually just very gently, you know, moving and thinking at the same time as reality, not like a thing that's separate from you. The stars falling off, like that was always happening. Like for that ceiling to drip, you had to be there. You know, you were part of that whole scene. You know, and maybe you just connected yourself to something that was already at the same time. It was already you, I guess.
Yeah, and orchestrated, and also the fact that I had never put those pieces together till about a year ago. I'd never, and yet that's probably one of the most profound moments of my history that I can recall looking back. But it was only about a year ago that I managed to put those pieces together.
Yeah, because that, and that's one of the really things I find fascinating with your story as well, is like, you mentioned you were what, 7? When that happened? So it's kind of like obviously I can imagine that being quite a profound moment, that would stick with you. But then you've kind of been on this like evolution, right? Because I think, were you a personal trainer? Am I right in saying that?
Well, do you know, the personal training was something that I did a left turn, because I've always, primarily, I started into psychology training when I was like in my late 20s. I fell into work as a counsellor at that time. And then I started to do fitness training, because when I was practicing personal therapy, I really felt it something was missing. But I can only look back now and say I needed to go there off to learn different parts of self, to be able to come back in and understand my relationship with the body and how trauma gets held, so that I could actively listen in a way where I embraced my clairvoyancy, because that's what was happening. I was being very clairvoyant, and then even psychic, and you could say medium. And that wasn't, to me, it didn't make sense for me. So I did a little left turn and did some fitness. And
it's interesting though, even that in itself, the fact that you've kind of, I guess you could argue that they're both come under health in general, but it's kind of like you say, it is a left turn, and it's one of those things. And this is what we were talking about before we started recording, but like you mentioned we were talking earlier about the whole thing you've spoken about with like integrations, right? And like integrating these multiple different, like wherever you feel that intuition or that calling, you're kind of going toward that. Whereas a lot of people might think like, oh, you're just hopping around randomly from one thing to the next. Like, hang on, you're a counsellor and now you're suddenly, what's that all about? But the way you just described it there was like, you kind of felt this like calling toward that, and there was a deeper reason in you doing that, and you just followed your intuition to do that, right? Whereas I feel like a lot of us can be sometimes blocked by, I guess, the perception of the outside world, right? Like, oh, what are people going to think if I suddenly move away from psychology and start doing something completely random? What are people going to think of me? There's all those other considerations.
Yeah. There's always that weighing up of how we're viewed and judged, and how we view and judge self. And if we're not being true to who we are, our body will take note of that and show that incongruence in some shape or form. And so I think being able to forever evolve is deeply important in this day and age. And I just feel like there's so many angles we could go in this podcast, because I feel like do you know a feather dropped down when you said to me about doing the podcast? I know this is really woo and a bit fluffy and a bit like girly, but yeah, I just have to tell you that.
Love it.
A feather dropped down.
That's really cool.
That was my deciding moment. Was
oh, nice.
I was in the car park. I was in the car park in the supermarket, and you'd messaged, and then it just came like this in front of my feather.
That's very cool. That's very cool. So I was just thinking, as you were saying, like as we were talking about your kind of left turn there, and because I guess the next thing that I'm wondering is like, how do you then get into mediumship? Because to me that seemed like it's such a,
is that what it's called? Mediumship.
Yeah,
is that the right word? Is that the right term?
Yeah, like, So a client said to me the other day, "Oh, do you talk to dead people?" And I said, "You mean mediumship?" And she said, "Yeah, mediumship." But yeah, so how does one find themselves talking? Yeah,
because so you've gone from, again, having these experiences as a young child to then getting into psychology and counseling, then the fitness, and now mediums. Like I can see some connection, but like, how do you make that jump from because counseling seems quite grounded almost, and mediumship is much more out there, right?
Like, it's very controversial as well.
yeah, how did that come about for you? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, there was many angles to how that now integrates into the systems that assist me with others in their healing. I think also, so I never set out to merge mediumship with counselling. So the mediumship side was more of a personal interest to me. And that got developed through a spiritual church that I found myself stumbling across. So it confirmed to me a gift. It confirmed to me I had that connection, which I didn't know at the time. So everything is a bit like, you know, what comes first, the chicken and the egg. And I think the most interesting thing is around mediumship is the way that when we connect with afterlife, and this is what I've found personally, and again, I respect religious beliefs and cultures and ethics and values around connecting with the dead. But from my experience, when spirit comes through, it's always talked about celebration. Like the amount of times I've stood on platform and given a message to the public, or I've been in the platform in the public and seen mediums give a message to the public. There's a general sort of theme that comes from spirit, and that is for the human beings on this lifetime, the bereaved, to celebrate. Very much so. And so I think in healing itself, I think it's around being able to turn suffering on its head and understand that really it's all just one big, it's one big paradigm. It's a cosmic joke. What we think is darkness really isn't. It's, you know, people who go on ayahuasca and all these sort of things, they say, they come to me and say, look, I've visited my heaven and my hell. And it is just like literally saying we can choose to celebrate, or we could choose but we all grieve, and that's the thing. But yeah, so I think the answer to your question is mediumship comes, I don't preempt it to come into the counselling work so much. If someone comes to me and they're grieving, I would strictly go with the grieving process. But because of my understanding of ethical framework, because I've studied so many angles, I have a deep respect for process. And I think that's why spirit gift me this opportunity, and they allow themselves to come through, because they know that I'm going to give the message in a way that's assisting the healing, not assisting a mechanism like a crutch. Because some people would go to mediumship just to continually get this message and know they're around. And, but sooner or later, they've got to go stand on their own 2 feet and get on with the world. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess, they might be doing it because they've missed a certain person and they just want that kind of, you know, to feel that connection. It's an interesting point. And what are you, I mean, this might be difficult to explain, but like, what is happening in that moment when you're giving a reading? Like, how does that come to you, or how do you get yourself into that state? Maybe it's something that just comes very naturally to you. I don't know. Like, but how does that happen?
Do you mean receive the information?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, there's many ways that you can tap in to this information. What I teach is to be able to do it, what I call on demand. But basically it means that you've got control of what's going on. Because lots of people who are psychic, and we all have the ability, of course, this is what I often say, but I think the difficulty is that some aren't able to control it. And some people just connect. They don't know they're connecting. So being able to, how I get to that state is I reverse engineer it and say I have a lot of boundaries in my life that mean that I'm quite closed to anything that comes through, unless it's contracted, unless it's almost like agreed, unless that person has said to me, Angelina, I'd like a reading. or I'd like to have a therapy session with you, because and I do things that in different angles. I give a reading, or I give a therapy session, and then the reading might come through within that therapy session if that client's open to it. So you have to be able to have an intention to connect with information. You need that person's permission. And then you need to create an environment where you are, where you can have focus.
Right, yeah. Is it not, do you not find it scary? Maybe you don't now, I don't know. To me it sounds scary, but maybe it's not, I don't know.
Well, it depends what you say scary. I think for on the universal note, I think the unknown is scary. Maybe that's
true. Yeah, true.
You're saying.
I guess that's a good point. Yeah, I think it is. It's the unknown, right? It's kind of like, you know, connecting with another world or plane of existence, however you want to call it, right? It's like that. To me seems scary. And I guess you don't know what's going to come through. If you're kind of being a channel for something, you don't know what's going to come through. But I guess to your point, you know, that's kind of the unknown, and that's the same with any day we're alive. We never know what's going to happen.
Go outside. You don't know who you're going to talk to.
That's very true.
Who they are.
Yeah, well, this is it. And so I think, obviously I've had clients who've come to me and said that they've had entities, like they've connected with bad spirit or nuisance spirit. I've never had that experience, but I think it's because I've had the experience of trauma, as like I've had to delve with my shadows, my shame, my guilt, and the sort of human fear. And so I don't have to have that experience of untoward spirit come to me.
Yeah, I've sometimes wondered that, actually. This is actually, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but I've often wondered with things like this, with channels and things, like if there is a part of it being like a, you know, I guess it's kind of like the law of attraction, right? It's kind of like your own internal vibration or state. Depending what state you are in yourself, you are going to attract or call in other, you know, like you're going to call in like spirits almost kind of thing, right? So if you yourself can get yourself into a good state and a good vibration, then, you know, because you mentioned as well about like the messages being that of celebration, and maybe if that's like your own state, then you're maybe that's what you're calling it. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
100%. You're spot on in that. That's exactly how I found it personally. You know, because I do a lot of dream work interpretation as well. And
what's that?
Well, you know, because at the end of the day, we're just looking at symbols and patterns. We're just looking at the signs are what's happening frequently that I need to take note of, and on this simplest form. And dream work is an amazing example of that. You see, but don't forget, when we dream, we have abstract art, and a lot of it can stand out freakish. And there's the nightmare effect, because it's got to really impact to get your attention.
My dreams, do you know, my relationship with dreams over the years has been really like, I used to have terrible nightmares when I was younger, to the point where I was actually scared to go to sleep. Like that's how bad it was.
Benjamin laughs. I wonder what that's about. Let's analyse.
It's quite funny though.
Yeah,
well, it's quite funny now. Like now, that's why you are like, it wasn't insomnia. You were just like, I don't want to go back there.
Yeah, no,
I don't want to go back there.
I did actually have insomnia, and that's probably why, you know. Whereas now, I still do have occasional nightmares, but they're kind of like fun and interesting at the same time. Like they should be nightmares, but I'm kind of like, that was really cool.
There you go. Yeah, the observer. See, I know that. So you've got, this is a little bit, you have a little bit of this you have in you is, well, we all have is, you're the observer. That's the joke. That's the playfulness. That's the interesting. We should come at dreams like, this is scary, but let's just be curious. Like we're watching a horror film and we do this for entertainment. It's like, let's just see what we can get from this.
That's a really good point, actually, because that has kind of been even just my own personal journey as well with, you know, I got into meditation like 10, 12 years ago or something. And I did start becoming much more self-aware. And before I had zero self-awareness at all. Right. So yeah, it's a good point. I never really thought about it like that, but that actually makes a lot of sense.
Probably is why those dreams feel more interesting.
More of a curiosity now than a fear.
Yeah, because it's almost like a thing of like, eventually more and more sort of like, oh, it's not, these things aren't separate from me, I suppose.
And it's a talk, so you're like quite excited about what am I going to find, like, use it to optimize your life a little bit to give you richer insight.
Yeah, that's really cool. What are your thoughts, Angelina, on because obviously a big part of your work, and you've mentioned this a few times now, like the word trauma and kind of healing from trauma. Do you think that it is possible for us to ever be like fully healed from trauma, or should we even try to be fully healed from trauma? Is that something we should be striving toward, or because sometimes I wonder, like, I feel like trauma kind of shapes us. It makes us who we are to an extent, right? I mean, there are levels, like obviously you don't want it to ruin your life, but I don't know, like what are your thoughts on trauma?
I mean, yeah, because that actually goes to the definition of trauma, doesn't it? And I love, do you know Gabor Mate or Mate?
Yeah.
Gabor Mate.
I love his work.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
He's amazing, yeah.
Sure. And, you know, the fact that none of us comes off this earth realm unscathed is to the point, and that we spoke about dream work being a place that can be scary but ironically exciting. And so we understand that trauma is a state of shock and confusion, either or both. And so do we ever stop surprising ourselves?
Yeah.
Is the question, you see. And then what do we do with that state? How do we mentioned integrate, but make use of that, you could say alertness to then give you guidance on things on a richer, deeper level. And it's been so fascinating for me mixing this the psychic stuff with personal therapy, because 70% of my sessions are listening. When it's somebody who says, you know, I really want to get to work with my trauma. And the reason is you only need a little bit of intervention, but the interventions are very, very focused and quite not directed, but you've listened with so much attentiveness that the reflection you give is on such a depth that person actually sees an aspect to themselves that they didn't think they'd find. And that's the way that you can do that, is by really understanding pain. And so I just feel that trauma is something that can allow us to navigate pain. And let's face it, you're not going to live life without pain. So yeah, it's like going to the gym.
Yeah. So
You
more about, I guess, helping. Would you say so the work you do with your clients, is it more like helping their relationship to their trauma then, as opposed to like trying to just completely get rid of everything and they're going to be like fully healed?
People come to me and say, I had a reading the other day, and they said that I need clearing, I need energy clearing, and I've got a cord cut and things like this. And you hear it a lot. I've used the word cord cutting before.
What does that mean?
Well, it just means releasing yourself from triggers. I mean, just releasing the bind of that of a loop of something that you feel is taking hold of you.
I see.
Sorry, did you? So yeah, where was I going? I forgot where I went there. Something happened in the room between Benjamin or you, Tom. Don't know what it is. Do you know what happens with me? Is I use my body, and we all use our body to connect. Is you will feel like that something happens to my body where I'm told that stop and just take note. Something's happened, and I ask this person. This is something an intervention I often use. I say, I'm just wondering, what are you thinking? What you're feeling? What you're sensing right now? And this would be one of the moments that I'd either say to you, Benjamin, or you, Tom, because I just have this feeling there's like, whoop, this vacuum. It was like, oh, one of you's had a download. What's that download? I need to just reaffirm to you that you've connected with something from a higher self. And those are just one of those moments that I got from one of you too.
Were you connecting with anything?
What, right now?
No, Tom, were you connecting with anything?
Oh.
I'll give my answer, but I want to ask you first.
Sure. So it's funny because as we're in this sort of real explorative state, right? This is a little bit of an experiment. Is the one thing that I am being connected to is, do you know Wayne Dyer? Have you listened to his teachings?
Who?
Wayne Dyer.
Wayne Dyer. Yeah.
I don't know whether you ever heard one of his talks, and he spoke about a lamppost and some keys and losing his keys. And he was saying, you know, that if you lost your keys outside your house, you wouldn't be going inside your home with a torchlight. You know, you have to go out. You have to go outside to find them. I can't quite get to it because I feel like it's just completely, is this the inside, is it going the wrong? But the message that I think I'm getting, Tom, at the moment is it's something about going within and not being able to, not having to seek your answers from the outside world. But I don't know how that relates to what you were connecting with.
Well, yeah, because what I was gonna say is I've had, when you mentioned, like, can't recall like a particular thing that I was feeling, but I do have the experience a lot, and I've talked about this with my kind of, like, I had a diagnosis of ADHD. I don't know, it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on ADHD as well, but like my experience of that is like I get, whether you want to call it downloads or ideas, just so many happened so often in such a short space of time. And and it can sometimes be very distracting, and like in conversations I will often like I might tune out momentarily because I'm kind of receiving something maybe, or there's an idea in my mind, and then I'll have to kind of bring myself back in, and sometimes it's really awkward. It ends up in these kind of awkward situations where I might be really intently trying to listen to someone, and then I get like quote unquote distracted, and it's this like constant thing that happens. And I have developed this kind of unhealthy trait almost, where I will sometimes like cut people off because like I need to get this thing out, right? It's like, oh my God, I just had the thing, and I need to say it now because otherwise I'm scared I'm going to forget it. Like that's an experience I have quite a lot. And I think maybe that's what I was feeling as you were talking, as I was feeling these things coming up, and I was like, oh, I can't say anything because she's still talking.
I love that. That's why I had that cue just to, and while I've just got this sticker, it says, I'm really mad. I put like I had these little thoughts come into my mind throughout the day, little sayings and quotes. I love absorbing, learning, just life. And I put you're a fraction of what you see. Oh, no. Downloads can happen with more than what you can handle, as in like they just come, they pour in, and then you think, oh my God, I can't contain this space. And you're just talking like this. I get what you're doing. I get what's happening. And I just want to say to you, that's really is quite a gift. Because when I'm in a session and somebody's talking, I will get what you have, Tom. I have so many answers to their question coming through. And I'm like, you're talking, but I've got the answer if you just, but that's not my place. And you got to trust yourself that when they do stop talking, you can pull on a strand, just one little thing that came with that avalanche, and that one little thing will be enough.
That's a really good point, and that's really the journey that I've been on over the past few years, and just learning to kind of trust that. And sometimes nothing comes up. Like sometimes I've forgotten all of that, and it's kind of like I've had to like learn to accept. You know, maybe that was the right response. Maybe nothing, silence was the right response, right? Maybe of all these things, it was because it's like when someone's talking, it's a constant, it's like an evolving process, right? So it's like new information is being presented constantly. So, and then maybe the right,
it's almost like it's meant to die out sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's almost like it doesn't necessarily die out. It just doesn't extend through you. It probably just appears somewhere else. Do you know what I mean? That information. And it's the same with creative output, isn't it? Like you're making something and maybe you're working on an idea, then suddenly the idea, you're like bored of it, so you don't finish it. It just appears somewhere else. Someone else probably just received that
That's exactly how it is.
And it appears somewhere else. Yeah. I definitely get it with creative outlet. Yeah.
Oh, you just got it. So that's completely, and you've managed to embody that and translate that through your understanding of art, and that's energy. So being present is the main thing, because you'd spot on there. It goes somewhere else, and it all gets stored in your system anyway. So when the time comes, you can retrieve on that archive. You've got to trust yourself. And so fascinating.
Is that what coming back to that kind of point earlier of like integration, is that kind of where that comes in, of like these different threads, I guess, that we're receiving and accumulating over time, and they kind of show up in.
Yeah. And it's like the example of when we're children and we hear stories, it's fascinating we take in a story when it's captures us, our interest, and you won't forget that story because of so. And so when we're attentively listening to somebody and there's so much insight pouring in, we can have all this insight pouring in while simultaneously listening to the client's story, and trust that because we're listening to their story, you are going to absorb all the details you need to, and you will be able to pull up on that memory, because we never forget a good story. So it's in your memory somewhere, even though you think you've lost it. I hope that makes sense, because I'm going a little bit.
No, it does make a lot of sense. I'm kind of like hearing, and there's do you know, it's quite funny. I'm actually feeling quite this sense of like intuition during our conversation. It's quite fascinating. But yeah, I mean, the thread that I'm kind of feeling here throughout this whole conversation now has been one of like trusting yourself, really. Like
the theme, and I think this goes back to the aspect of healing, into being whole. Being whole is trust the self, that they can be all they are and can be. And through self-acceptance, because we are many aspects of through self-acceptance comes that faith and trust. So when people go, oh, I really want to start to like learn tarot cards and develop my psyche, I'm like, well, let's look at your relationship to, let's look how much you trust things. Can you trust yourself first? Fundamentally, can you trust yourself? And that is about self-acceptance.
Yeah, I like that, because I do feel, you mentioned earlier as well, with even just with like kind of psychic readings and things, is that people can, I think, use some of these things as like a bit of a crutch, where it's not like they're doing those things or hiring the services of someone because they don't trust themselves or because they feel incomplete, and it's trying to fill like some sort of void. So I really like that, what you're saying of like, the foundations first need to be that you do trust yourself and you do feel complete. And that's when, you're going to, I guess, I don't know what, like, I guess you'll be more, you'll see more, is it that you'll receive more kind of accurate answers almost?
Yeah, we're all looking for clarity. We're all looking for guidance on different levels. And so, and the thing is obviously I've had to showcase this work in certain categories. For instance, I do psychic mediumship readings, and that's if I go into like a mind, body, spirit fair and I'm just channeling. And then I've got like the counselling and so that people come in and like I'm coming in for counselling, I'm coming in to resolve something in myself, and then over time I introduce different ways to work and based on that person's character and style and the way they process and think. But we're all looking to have indirect answers and direct answers. We want to be told what to do, but we equally want to discover and explore. And so we can't be told what to do, but yet there's a part of the child that says, I really crave direction and a role model. So I want both. And us as the vessel has to kind of work with that person to feel out their inner child and say, what do they really want here? Like, because you might come for tarot reading. I'm like, you don't want a tarot reading. You want to be understood. So you just want space for that.
That's so true. That's so true. It's that, and it's such a fascinating kind of dichotomy, or is that the right word? Dichotomy? Like it's just like this weird, because it's the same with marketing, as you know, like I do marketing, and it's exactly the same thing of like, if you try to sell something to someone or you try and push something on them, they're going to be repelled because people don't want to be told what to do, but subtly they do. They are looking for like some guidance in their life and like, what is this thing? Like we all feel a little bit lost, right? But then at the same time, it's kind of like they want to feel like they're coming to their own decision. So it's just like, people are just weird.
We are
just weird.
We're intrinsic. We're just, there's a lot to our tapestry.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can see how we're all present. It's hard, to give time, especially I'm very conscious of distributing time. Like, who am I working with? There's 3 of us. What are we aiming for? Let's distribute this. Like, who's in the conversation, who's not, and all of this. And I'm also trying to assessing you, Benjamin, and what's going on. Not assessing, because that feels like but it's like I'm noticing. Whilst I'm talking to Tom, I'm also noticing you, Benjamin, and I'm focusing on what's happening with Tom, but I'm also feeling a little bit in the background of what's happening with you, Benjamin. And it's all this sort of
dynamics.
Sure. Sure.
What is happening with you, Ben?
Yeah, what is happening?
Currently drawing a series of squiggles, actually. And when you had your moment where you were like, I think something's coming through, and I was just like, that squiggle looks like a dinosaur. That was all that came through for me. And I was like, I really like dinosaurs. And then I thought about how, like, when I was talking about the smell of petrol the other day, and someone was like, that's dinosaurs. And I was like, isn't it weird that we like the smell of petrol? And then I came back.
Yeah.
And, but that's just where it went for me. That was and I was like,
it's a journey.
You picked up on dinosaurs,
I
petrol. But
sure,
why does petrol smell so good?
Why does it? There is something. Oh, is this something about?
It's not everyone.
No, you're right, and I feel like I've got deja vu around this because I'm sure there is something scientific around this. What as you're speaking, but. Go back to dinosaur for 1 minute. I just felt like to say the word epic, obviously, because that feels like huge, right? Dinosaurs. I'm giving the word epic as you speak, but it's just to weave it into the body of what we're all discussing here, and how does this relate? It's something around. I'm trying to get like the connection with machinery and epicness, here we go. Don't you just love how we work this out in real time? AI. And it's like AI can be epic. Technology is just like a dinosaur. It's just like a monster. It's just like it's gonna grow and grow. It's gonna be rapid. And maybe, Benjamin, you were talking, your psyche, your spirit was processing this magnitude of technology and where we're going. I don't know how that relates to what you were processing, Tom, because Tom, we were talking about navigating your inner compass and trusting self. And so I think maybe what we're all grappling with is the self, with this huge tool that we have to go over and beyond what this self can do. I don't know. I've gone off on a tangent somewhere.
No, I find this whole conversation. This has like been one of my favorite conversations. It's just so fascinating because it's kind of like I'd never really given much consideration to this before, but it's just like highlighting how complex we all are and how we're all always in our own worlds receiving our own downloads of information at like all times, right? And I really like that you kind of picked up, Angelina, on like kind of Ben and what Ben was kind of just sitting there, kind of like what was happening for him in that moment, it's because it's true, like anyone, in any conversation there's always like something happening, there's a whole world happening within someone.
And it kind of puts attention on the thing that you feel like we don't normally, like in a conversation. Yeah. If it's like what it feels like small print in the brain, but for some reason it came up, it's almost like we maybe don't have to ignore it, or it shines some light of awareness on the thing that we don't often get to. The sort of it normally passes, and suddenly it's like that's the forefront. Is that intuitive thing coming up in the brain? And that's why I find this book is full of doodle. I have this, and I like the idea that it looks like I'm writing a series of notes, but sometimes like it's just squiggles to like random words. Sometimes they came up in the podcast. Once I just drew a series of like chickens of all different sizes, thousands of chickens. I feel we were having a really deep conversation as well, but it got me. I
think I even. Yeah. We've talked about. I mentioned patterns and sequences. That life is just a bunch of maths, and that we've got to just be comfortable with the randomness of things. Like I have notelets all over the place, and I like what you said about the small print, because I think that we have a task to handle a problem, but sometimes we just have to come away from it to actually get to the defining outcome in the most sort of clear cut and qualitative way. We're getting really deep, aren't we? I could just notice we're just going really, really
I like
deep.
it.
Yeah. I always find the problem is condensing time. It's just like, making sure to get to what the most important pieces that need attention in this amount of time, but how can I feel my way through that?
I guess that comes back to that thread again of trust, right? Of like whatever needs to come out, whatever needs to be said will be said,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it's one of those things. It's like you want to get it right, and then it's like a thing of time, isn't it? Where you feel like it didn't go right that time, but maybe, or you didn't get out the right thing, but maybe because it didn't go right later on, it lined up for something else. Do you know what I mean? Maybe, I guess it's just our relationship with thinking that time's all happening.
I was just thinking as well, when you mentioned about your dinosaurs, Ben, I was just thinking about how, like when you ask someone like, oh, what are you thinking? And they say, oh, I don't know, nothing. It's just my brain's just somewhere else. And it's kind of like, they probably do know, or like I've said that myself, and like I do know, but it's like I feel like it's not important.
Sure.
And that's what I was saying earlier. That's what's so interesting. It's shining the light on that.
100%. Yeah, it's like there's all these. Yeah, and this is kind of what this. I mean, if I could put a bow on the conversation so far, that would be what it is. Is it's like this. Like all of these things that we feel and think, they are and can all be very important if we choose to see them as such. Whereas if we don't, they just get kind of left in the dark. And, there's probably so many insights and learnings in everything, but we have to be willing to kind of see it and not say it's not important or,
Well, I just love the way it all ties up and everything seems to always come back full circle, because don't sweat the small stuff. I think there's a book about that, mindset training, but it is the small stuff. Like it is the small stuff, and let's really how do we call it, value the little things more, and that just strengthens the way that we matter. And that would, if we matter and life matters, then we're more inclined to get to the things the way we need to get to things.
I love that.
We get to the things that matter.
Because I mean, what is life if not just a series of loads of tiny little millions of tiny little things and moments, right? Love that. That's so awesome. Angelina, before we wrap up, if people want to connect with you, where can they find you? Where can people connect with you if they want to check your stuff out?
Well, I've just put everything under my name. So my name, Angelina Ray. Okay. So you can go onto Facebook and Instagram under Angelina Ray. And my website is Angelina Ray, www.angelinaray.com. So
nice and easy. We'll link to the website and stuff in the show notes of the podcast as well. But yeah, this has been super fun. Thank you so much for coming on. This has actually been one of my favorite episodes. It's been a really cool vibe and experience. So
you are really welcome. It has been fun, and I can't help but it's nice to I always the thing with me is I go, Angelina, stop. Because I'm intrigued to delve into and do some but that will be another time and space, I'm sure. And thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Likewise. Thank you.